also the truthful answer, and the presenter has so much freedom. If you work in dance music radio, you work in specialist music, so as a DJ, part of your job, as you know, Kutski, is selecting the music. Like, we are there to help. I'm there to help John if he needs my help. He really doesn't. But we're there more for an editorial point of view to make sure there's nothing offensive in the track, very rude sexual language or racist words. Obviously, we're there to make those decisions. But the presenter, basically, I would say, has 95% control over the music. So it's all good.
So Jazzy M, like, how much work can you kind of explain to people goes into a radio show? You know, on say an average 2-hour radio show, a lot of people kind of would think it's 2 hours work, but how much preparation actually would go into that show?
Well, I would say back in the day, you just turn up with your tunes. You'd obviously pre-program. What I mean by tunes is vinyl. Nowadays it can be a little bit different, obviously, with the technology, so you can kind of almost like playlists, because there's one thing about doing radio which is different to clubs, which is you can kind of playlist yourself. Obviously with a live audience in a club it's totally different, so with radio you can actually pre-program what you're going to play. And if I was, it'd take me a couple of days to really kind of, you know, put that into perspective and get that get them tunes ready for a radio show, especially on a weekly basis. When you're, you know, continuity is great because obviously new stuff's coming in all the time, but you do have to put at least a couple of days into it, for sure.
Well, that does lead us on to the next question as well. With it is kind of how different it is to prepare a radio show than what it is to prepare a club set. And it's like, I'm supposed to be asking the questions, but I'm going to answer this one because it's like, yeah, because it is like, you know, when you're playing in a club, you're trying to get this seamless flow of music, and you know, obviously you're playing to the crowd, you can see what tracks are working, what aren't, the way you're going. Whereas with the radio show, I think you're kind of going for the opposite of that almost. You know, kind of you want to break it up and, you know, explain about the music, and obviously people want the music to listen to, but then they want to be educated to a certain extent as well. You know, I mean, how do you feel about that, Steve? It's kind of, how do you find like club sets, you know, when you're thinking about music? I mean, how do you approach them completely different, or is it a similar mentality?
Yeah, see, my show's kind of evolved. Originally when I had the show, it was just a set I was doing for my friends that I was basically putting online for people to have a listen to. It kind of then evolved into becoming more of a standard radio show, playing all different genres of music, etc. My show has kind of gone back now to being more of a clubby style DJ set kind of thing. I've found certainly with my show being basically over the internet, the majority of people that are listening to me are downloading it onto their iPods, they're listening to me while they're in the gym, they're on the way to work, that kind of thing. Or a Saturday night like they would be with. So mine has to be more about sort of moving along, keeping the energy going to keep people interested. Where Friday and Saturday nights they're probably tuned in to like yourself or local radio for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there's obviously the internet, you know, it's had a big impact in music. We'll try and steer away from the whole thing of how the internet's actually affected music downloads, but how's it affected radio, do you think, these days?
No one from PRS or anything here, hopefully.
I hope not.
No, I think, you know, it's nothing but a good thing, and it's interesting, music listening and trends are changing as people go more towards digital. Because of mainstream commercial radio consolidation, this is not affected by the BBC, this is purely commercial radio. Dance music radio, certainly in this country, has really suffered in the past 5 years or so. So there are very few outlets. Radio 1 is still very much championing new music, championing dance music, and it's great that they've stuck with it and not just gone for things that they think may be of the moment. But the other side of that is having internet radio and internet dance music radio means that people do have an outlet to go and find music if they can't find it on traditional FM stations, or they can make content for it and they can put it onto the internet themselves. And obviously, you know, Steve is a prime example of that. The other thing is that listening habits are changing in so much as it's not linear. People don't listen just on a Friday night. They can go and listen when they want to do it. Listen again or on demand services, and that is so important. Podcasting makes stuff portable, so it is, you know, essentially nothing but a good thing. And a prime example of that would probably be Ministry of Sound Radio has been around for years and years and years. They've tried different things, some of them worked, some of them haven't worked. What they have done in the past 3 years is invest in trying to get onto iTunes, get onto make apps on mobile phones, Android, all the rest of it. The net effect of that is an audience now where you have around 500,000 people who are touching Ministry of Sound Radio in some way or form every week, and 30,000 people going to all the specialist shows and listening to them. So
yeah, because I think it's one of them things that you're not limited by the people that are available at your time slot on the radio now. Exactly. With kind of internet, you know, it's like I've got a little nephew who's 3 years old, and he doesn't understand that he can't watch what he doesn't want to watch on TV when he wants to watch it. He doesn't understand certain things are on because they're so used to it already. So I think, you know, the next generation of people that come through, you know, they're not going to want to listen to radio at a certain time slot. They're kind of going to want to be able to listen to it whenever they can. So the next thing, Esme, I think is more than qualified to talk about, because obviously being a producer, you'll see new DJs coming onto radio stations and other DJs leaving. But kind of how does a new DJ go about getting a slot on a station? You know, kind of when obviously in the offices, you know, people are in the process of taking on new talent. What are you actually looking for when you take on a new presenter?
Okay, when a station takes on a new presenter, they're obviously looking for something that's not already covered on their station. So it might be a genre of music. So in John's case, hard dance, we needed hard dance on the station. Different stations have different ways for you to get on there, but it's still absolutely fine to think it's 1988 and send a demo into a station. That's how most people are going to get shows at the end of the day. But it's not the only way. Another way, or a very good way if you're a dance DJ, is to become successful in your local scene as a DJ and offer something unique, because people at these big stations are always listening and always looking for people, and it's part of my job to do that and put people forwards to the station manager.
So Jazzy, what would you say is some good advice, you know, for people if somebody's a club DJ, you know, they you know, feel they want to take it to the next level, they want to get into radio in some way, where's the best place for them to start? I mean, obviously podcasting's a big buzzword at the moment.
Yeah, and also I think networking as well, getting to know the right people. It's always a major thing to do in this industry, you know, getting to know people that are involved in radio through networking. I mean, so many different networking sites for just DJs alone now. So I'm still learning myself about the internet. So I come from the old school. But yeah, that's really what I'd say. To know people in radio, like Esme said, sending in demos is a great way, and a lot of people don't do that because they just think, oh, I won't stand a chance. But if you actually do try something, you might get listened to.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying with that, you know, you've got to be in it to win it, and these days, you know, you haven't got to get picked up even by a local radio station or anything. All you've got to do is go down to August, buy yourself a cheap mic for £25, stick it in free software on your computer, and you can make your own podcast and your own radio show and just build it from there. And the other thing is you're going to get the experience there as well, because it's like, you know, it's kind of quite nerve-wracking, you know, if you first go in front of a microphone and start having to talk. But, you know, if you're used to doing it in your own bedroom and stuff, you know, when you do get the opportunities to break through, it's always good to have that experience behind you. So on the next one, go back to Esme on this one, because not everyone's cut out to be a presenter, and not everyone, you know, kind of wants to be on the front line, as it were, with it. But a lot of people love radio and want to be involved somehow. So what other jobs are available other than being the man behind the mic?
Well, obviously you could do my job, you could be a radio producer, but if you want to work in dance music radio and you don't want to be a DJ, whatever you do, it has to be something to do with the music, because that's what dance music radio is about. It's not necessarily about personalities. You need to have your personality there if you're going to become a presenter. So, working with the music, you could be a radio plugger and you could work representing the labels and bring the music into the station. You can obviously work in production as a producer, assistant producer, broadcast assistant. The other thing you can do is work in marketing, and that way, all live events, then you get to go to Ibiza if you're very lucky.
Yay.
However, if you do that and you work at a big station like Radio 1, you won't just work in dance music, you will work in live events for the whole station. So you've got to bear that in mind. So as long as it's something to do with the music, you'll be working, you know, you can get the job that you want, but you have to focus on the music.
So Des, a fickle question, but I suppose a lot of people are going to want to know this. Once you get on the radio and you get yourself an audience, do your fees go up in the clubs?
Shouldn't you be answering this?
Yes, they do.
Of course they do, because it's part of building your well, generally, if you've got the right people looking after you, or you're savvy enough, your fees definitely should go up rather than going down. But You know, the radio is another element of what you do and bringing what you do to more and more people. So I would hope that the gigging fees would go up as part of that, because you're opening yourself up to, you know, a whole new audience. And obviously, the bigger the station, the more profile you have, then you are going to be able to command a better fee by nature of being in that position. That is the nature of the beast.
Cool. And Steve, last question that we've got on the list. Kind of, you know, it's obviously a big digital era now. You know, things have really changed. Where do you think the future of dance music radio is going?
Well, like you touched on with your nephew or your niece or whatever, everything is now, we're living in an on-demand world, and I think certainly traditional radio and radio shows, not that they'll become a thing of the past, but you know, there's so many shows out there now where you can just podcast, you can download, you can listen whenever you want online, that kind of stuff. So I definitely think we're moving further away from sort of traditional radio, and sort of podcasting or that kind of going to be the future as far as I'm concerned.
Right, I think that's all we've got kind of as far as, you know, questions to ask the panel, but, you know, everyone's here. I mean, if anyone's got any questions out in the audience, have we got any mics anywhere to pass around, or are we just going to start sloshing these ones around? Has anyone got any questions? Put your hand up. No?
Great.
We're all radio guys, so we can just sit here and keep talking all day like you're So, one down here, yeah?
I have a question. It's slightly unrelated to what you've been talking about, but I'm a producer. I've had a top 10 record in the past, but it's been some time ago. We've got a new track which we think could be very big. I'm wondering what's the best way to get the track onto radio?
Personally myself, it's like I've got like an email address set up, and everything that gets sent through to me, I do genuinely listen to, kind of, you know, download. You know, and I think, you know, most DJs will agree, and you'll know yourself as a producer, it's like, you know, you can open up a track, have a skip through it, and it's like, and you can know if it's going to be up your street or not, and then if it does kind of catch your eye, you give it a more detailed listen, and it really is just as simple as, if I get a track sent through to me and I like it, I'll play it. I mean, it's that simple for me, but I don't know whether any of the other guys, you know, have any other kind of...
Exactly the same. Yeah, I have a promo email address, says, well, everything comes through to me, I'll have a listen, I'll try and give feedback on every track that gets sent to me.
I think another thing is, Esme will know a lot about with, there's people in the industry called pluggers, and just not to kind of, you know, if anybody's not familiar with the term, they're basically people, if you're a producer, you would hire a plugger and give the music to that person that then has contacts at the radio station. So if Esme like explain a bit about how that process, and, you know, and pluggers that you trust, and whether you actually, because I've seen a lot of people kind of say, oh, I'm a plugger, I can get your music on the thing, but you've got to give me X hundred a pound to do it, and I kind of think to myself, are you just in it to scam? I mean, so, do you want to explain a little bit about plugging?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to be honest, in dance music we use plugins slightly less than we would do if I was making a rock or an indie show or literally any other type of show. However, bear with me on this. We work with a number of pluggers who we trust. They bring us a lot of music that we believe in. They're very simple to search for online. I feel unfair recommending who they are, but I'm sure if you just typed in Radio 1 and radio pluggers into Google, you would get some answers. But also, I think it's really important what John said. Basically, for Radio 1, if you go to our website, every single show has got a web page, and there's a little contact box. You just click that, you can email your track straight into the show, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about Pete Tong or a brand new DJ that we've got in New DJs We Trust. They have to listen to all your music. We're a public service broadcaster. We will listen to everything. We cannot guarantee that we'll necessarily email you back with feedback, but if we like the track, we again might not email you back, but you'll be listening, and all of a sudden your track will be on, and then the other dance shows will pick it up. It might be on a white label, then someone will want to sign that track, and away you go. So I agree that it's just about sending your music into the station, and your music will do the talking for you.
Okay, another gentleman at the front with a question.
Yeah, I'm a dance program producer myself, and I'm wondering how many time do you guys need to select a track that's right for the show? Is it seconds, minutes, how much?
Well, again, speaking from my own experience, if I get it through, I play kind of like pretty hard music as far as dance music goes. So if I get some ambient chill out thing, if I kind of like skip 3 times through the track and it isn't going dun 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 dun, it's probably not going to be up my street. But, you know, kind of, if it is doing that, then I'll have a little listen a little bit closer, you see if the quality of the production of the track is good enough, and then if so, then you start to listen to more, hear how the track's building, if the momentum, is there any hook that's really kind of dragging you in with that. And so it's almost like a step-by-step process. I could dismiss a track within 15 seconds because I know it's just not going to be for me, but then kind of each time it's the more intrigued I am, the longer I'll listen to it, the closer it is to making it to the show, I guess. I mean, Jazzy M, how do you feel? How do you go about when you get music sent through?
I always listen, always give it the full. If it's something that's just totally like not my bag, I've got quite a wide range of taste as well in house music, which is what I play. So, but I'd always give it a listen, always give it a try. And now being program controller for a whole station, I'm going to be pinpointing tunes to say, well, this I might not like this, but and go to another DJ and say, check this out. This actually is right up your street. So I always give it a full listen.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. I think it's worth going around the panel and kind of and everyone just commenting on kind of the process that you go through, kind of with picking that music.
I mean, if your playlist, there's two ways of looking at it. If you look at it from a specialist perspective, generally you should have an idea of the kind of style and feel of the music that goes into your show, which again, as you're saying, makes it easier to, if you get something that is so obviously not right, then you do move on from it reasonably quickly, and then you'll go onto something. There may be tracks that are borderline. I don't think it's an exact science. I think it is about having a gut feel. It is also about being subjective. Every record is different. You've got to be as open-minded as possible with everything. But having said that, there are certain parameters that you need to work within, because otherwise it ends up being a free-for-all. So yes, it's going to be a matter of seconds in dismissing certain records, because you're just going to hear them and go, it's not right for me, and you move away from it. But there are other ones that you may well, I find I'll listen to a track and then think, I'm not sure about this, but I'm going to come back to it in a couple of days, and then leave it, and you come back in a different mindset, a different frame of mind, listen to it again and think, actually, there is something about this record, and then it will make the cut, if you like.
Yeah, it's a really good answer. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I do. It's like, because music gets sent through so much, you can be quite dismissive and brutally harsh with it just because of the pure volume of music you've got to get through. But that's a good point of maybe kind of having a separate folder of maybes to come back to and listen again. So yeah, I'm learning stuff here as well. It's good stuff, people. It's good stuff. Steve?
Yeah, I think we met each other yesterday, didn't we, in the demo listening? Yeah. Exactly what the guys have said there. I'll always have a listen to a track. It is easy to dismiss, because straight away with a lot of tracks that I'm sent, you can tell the production isn't there, or it's just not my bag, as you were saying earlier on. The one thing I would say though is just try and make your music stand out, because again, like I think I touched on yesterday, sometimes I can get sent 10 tracks and they sound, to me, they could be made by the same person. They're all very similar. Your track just needs to stand out to be that 1 out of 10 that gives it the reason I play it on my show.
I have another question. If a friend of you has a track that doesn't come through the selection quite, but because he's a friend, will you play his track before another one?
Depends how much you paid me. For me, the answer would be no. Simple reason is my shows have got to be to a certain level. I know what people expect when they're listening to my show. I like to think all the tracks that I put on my show of a higher level. I wouldn't necessarily just put one of my friends' tracks on just for the sake of it, no. How about you, Kutski?
I'll be brutally honest, no chance. Yeah. And I'll be honest about it as well. It's kind of because I do think it's, I'm very picky with the music that I play, because I want it to be the highest level, and I want that to be representative of me. I want people to listen. Someone can tune on when that good track's on and kind of go, oh, yeah, Kutski, not sure about the stuff he was playing the other night. I don't want that reflection. And the other thing is, because I come from quite a niche genre of music, I want, if somebody's into house music and they turn in, even if they turn off and go, I don't like that music, I want them to be like, it's not my cup of tea, but fair dues, the music was good, the production was good. So it's like I am quite brutal with how strict I am with the music. So and I think any DJ with integrity, and I'd like to think most DJs aren't going to do that unless there was a lot of money involved.
If it's shit, it's shit.
You can't polish a turd.
How much?
Any other questions for anyone else? Gentleman over there.
Yeah, hiya. We've been fortunate enough to be approached by a local radio station to start doing a show, and that's why we wanted to make sure we came to this panel today. Are there any particular sort of do's and don'ts that we should be aware of? Because we're very used to playing in clubs and DJing and having a real good party, which is fine in that environment. When you get into a studio, it's a totally different side of things, and certainly not from a broadcasting perspective. I don't know if it would be the right way to behave or what you should and shouldn't do.
I mean, I think it's the same across everything. With dance music, I think it's like common etiquette, you know. It's like you do get some people that are, you know, kind of coming up to you all the time going, oh mate, seriously, I wrote this amazing tune, you're going to be loving it, you're so going to want to be playing it. And it's like, you know, your eyes do start rolling before you've even, you know, heard it. But, you know, when somebody comes up to you and just says, hi, you know, I'm a producer, I've been writing tunes, I'm writing hard dance music, which is what you play. I was wondering if you'd mind, you know, giving you a CD or something. And that kind of etiquette, you know, as much as it is, it's just general politeness, you know. It's like, you know, your mum would have told you when you were growing up, you know, that general politeness is going to get you a long way in life. I mean, you know, Jazzy, is there anything, kind of any etiquette that you could kind of comment on from people you've dealt with in the industry?
When it comes to doing radio shows, the first and foremost, you know, obviously it's a massive difference between club and radio. A radio, you know, when you're in the studio, it's quite a sterile environment. You know, you're sort of just locked in. When you got the tunes pumping, it's great. You know, you're there, you're with the music, you're enjoying yourself. Never try to say too much, always just say enough. That's the one thing I'd always say to people. You know, don't say it unless it really means something. Try not to have too many mates, because people will always, you know, will want to crowd with you and come in the studio. Try and keep it quite liberal. It depends on the station, you know what I mean? They're always going to have their rules and regulations. I'm talking about more from a community station upwards, you know. And yeah, just treat it like you would your sets out, but be even more professional, and just remember, no swearing. You know, it's common sense, really.
Can I just add on to that? If you're talking about etiquette in the studio when you're presenting your show, a really good thing to do, and every show, certainly at the BBC does this, you need to write a script. And a script isn't what you're going to say necessarily, but you need your track, the record label it's from, when you can download it, all that stuff, and say 3 or 4 points. But just when you're talking about the music after the track or in the mix, you've got the important information there. People are going to listen to your show because you're specialist dance DJs, so they want the knowledge that goes with it. So that would be my advice, just write a basic script. It does take a couple of hours to do it, but it will make your show, if you're not already doing it, so much better.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's working with your station management. At the end of the day, whoever hires you and pulls you into that station, wants you to deliver a particular product, is sitting with them before you go on air to decide exactly where you fit into the schedule. Because it may be a situation that, I don't know what the station's like, that actually what you're doing is you're following on from what their mainstream daytime offering is and doing something a little bit brighter at the weekend, for argument's sake, for people getting ready to go out. So therefore, you're not going to be, you know, if you, for want of a better word, you're not going to be providing a credible specialist product, you're just enhancing what they do on the rest of the station. Or maybe you are doing something completely different and you are there to add credibility. But it's important to establish that before you go on air, because there's two very different approaches to how you craft the show. I mean, there are fundamental basics within that, say the show prep. You know, you can't go into a radio station with a bag of CDs and just play them and expect to deliver good radio. There has to be an element of knowing what you're doing in between those records to make it sound listenable. You know, and you know, as Jazzy says, there's obviously a huge difference between being in the club and being on the radio, and it's trying to understand that as much as possible. Then part of that is also listening to other shows, and you know, listening to what Kutski's doing, to what Pete does on Radio 1, or some of the guys are on Capsule on the Capsule Network at the weekends now, and how they craft a radio show. You know, that will give you a good idea of, you know, how to approach it without, you're not ripping somebody off, you're just taking the elements of radio show production and putting it into whatever you'll do.
Anything to add to that, Steve?
Not really. I've got the joys of not having to do it in a radio station. I do it in my home studio, so I can have a party if I want a party. So I'm fine on that side. Well, I'd always say it's like anything to do with any kind of DJing, whether it be on radio, whether it be in a club. It's all about professionalism, isn't it? You've got to make sure that the end product is something that people are going to want to listen to, and it's not just you and your mates having a few bevies, playing a few tunes.
Yeah, I think the other thing as far as like, you know, etiquette to the listeners that you're actually talking to with it, is I always find when I was listening to radio, obviously the person that you're listening to is an expert in the music, but I don't want to listen to a radio show where someone's kind of talking down to you like they're the expert and they know all about it, and you almost feel isolated or alienated because you're not part of that scene. So I always try and keep it as open as possible and just be really kind of, you know, friendly. So it's more like, you know, everyone, so, you know, it's like, you know, all your listeners are your friends, and it's like, you know, if you've got this amazing new tune, you'd be really excited, you know, to, you know, when you go around to your friend's house on a Friday night, and it's like, oh, guess what, I got this amazing new tune, I got it sent by this guy from out in Italy, I've never heard of him before, but apparently he's, you know, coming through the ranks against, you know, and that kind of excited, you know, telling a friend about the music. And I always find, personally, when I'm listening to radio, I like that approach to it, so it's like, I always try and hope that comes across on my show as well. So I think we're getting told to wind it up now, are we? Yeah, it's like saying, you know, well, come on, it's a radio panel with people on radio. We talk for a living. So I think, is he hiding behind the deck somewhere? Who's up next? Are we ready to go?